The UFC has never explicitly stated why they're doing a significant amount of the events at the Apex Center these days when the world has been restriction-free for a good while now, but it's fair to assume it comes down to the fact that it's a money saver for the promotion. If you've ever been to a live UFC event before, it's not hard to see that taking that operation on the road can be a costly affair. Between the renting of a major arena and having to schedule it in between whatever other professional sports and concerts are going on, the setup, the teardown, the moving and setting up of the production trucks, the octagon itself, the audio and visual equipment, having to arrange the travel for the staff to get over there, the renting of the hotels, the multiple conference rooms required to handle the logistical ends of things, the transport for all the athletes to the various media obligations and the weigh-ins, and on it goes. Needless to say, it's quite the ordeal to get this show on the road. So it's no wonder we're continually seeing all these fights take place in the Apex Center. With the entire operation already in place and everything done in-house, it must make life so much easier for the promotion just to stay put and broadcast these events to the world from El Camino Road in Las Vegas. And it's been okay for it to be that way for a while, but the territory we're entering now is starting to get uncomfortable. We are now into February of 2023, and this weekend we're looking ahead to yet another Apex event headlined by Krylov and Spann. How much longer does this stand to go on for? Again, it was fine for a time, but it's time to get back on the road. Why? Because the value of bringing UFC events to smaller towns is more significant than the UFC gives it credit for. Those of you who have been lucky enough to attend multiple live events tend to forget how memorable and exciting of an experience it is getting to see the octagon in person for the very first time. Taking in the live experience is a totally different animal than the produced TV show the vast majority of the fan base are so accustomed to watching. For a hardcore MMA fan, there is nothing more exciting in this world than seeing your first UFC event live. Not everybody out there has the means to travel to a major city with a major arena wherever the UFC is headed. Not everybody even lives anywhere near a major city where such things exist. A lot of folks in the Western world take their proximity to these big cities for granted, with a lot of us having to take a plane to get anywhere to even sniff at a UFC event live. Before COVID, the UFC would travel to cities like Greenville, South Carolina, Wichita, Kansas, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Boise, Idaho, or even overseas to places like Santiago, Chile, Glasgow, Scotland, and Hamburg, Germany. Anytime they entered a new or smaller market, it not only gave local fans an opportunity to get the live experience, but it also made those fans feel much more connected to the sport, certainly more than ever before, as opposed to the way it's always felt for them, which is feeling as though it's a world away. I've seen firsthand the effect it can have when the UFC enters a smaller city for the very first time when I attended the promotion's first ever visit to Atlantic Canada when they came to Halifax in 2014. By then, I'd been lucky enough to have seen major pay-per-views in Vegas and Toronto, but seeing and feeling the energy of many of the people in that city at that time was straight up intense. It was a different level and a different type of excitement I saw going to the bigger events in the bigger cities. It just seemed like everybody in that arena's base level excitement was a lot higher than I'd typically seen. The ripple effect it had on the city was immense. Just by virtue of the UFC being in town ignited every single martial arts gym in the Maritimes. All martial artists in the area felt a great deal of pride and inspiration in their craft, and the crowds came out in droves, with the arena being mostly filled from the very first prelim fight on to the main event. When you're in a small town and the show comes to your own backyard, for many aspiring mixed martial artists, it makes it feel like the dream isn't so far-fetched. I can guarantee you, the following Monday, all classes for all gyms in that area were full and with a lot of very fired up members. It not only inspires the fan base, it gives an opportunity for the lower profile fighters to get star treatment anytime they get a chance to fight in their hometowns. We've been lucky enough to see it a few times over the years, but when a fighter gets to fight in front of their home crowd, it provides us with the stakes being raised and a much more entertaining experience overall. Like, for instance, when the Octagon came back to Halifax in 2017, except this time they signed local featherweight Gavin Tucker to the promotion to make his debut in the very city he trains out of. The clinic he put on against Sam Sicilia that night stole the show and amped up the excitement around him and the event as a whole. That's one example of many we've seen over the years. There's a lot of eager audiences of devoted fans out there deserving of having the Octagon come to their arena. But as we continue to hold these cards on El Camino Road, we continue to deprive fans of the opportunity to experience the magic for the first time, deprive the fighters of their ability to grow their profile in their respective hometowns, and deprive the fans of a much more enjoyable product overall. How much better would it be if this weekend's card was in Memphis, Tennessee, where Ryan Spann was born and raised? How much bigger would this moment be for him, and how much bigger would the moment feel for the fans at home and the locals in the arena alike? I don't hate the idea of having the Apex used for a scattered fight night when the card is just really thin, but aside from those, it's time to get this show back on the road.